Hello, everyone, and welcome to Torch Sports. We're excited to be back this semester, and we hope that you are too. We start tonight with the Orange Zone crew, that being Sophie Starkey, Luke Attell, Luke Lamry, and I'm your host, Jackson Schock. Now, the Tennessee men's basketball team is 1 month into the gauntlet that SEC play has become, and it has not treated them kindly. Their most recent test came Tuesday night in Food City Center against a familiar foe, the Kentucky Wildcats. Both teams entered Tuesday night's game looking to just get back on track following a loss. Kentucky fell to Vanderbilt, something Tennessee can relate to, and Tennessee to Auburn. Both teams really just looking to get started, and Kentucky is able to get threes off the go. Their first 12 points came from threes like that one, and Tennessee's just got to find an answer. Now they're able to tie things up towards the half. Chaz Lanier hits a three to take the lead going into the second half. And to the second half we are. Kentucky in the driver's seat looking to extend their lead, and that's exactly what they do, courtesy of this three by Trent Noah.
I mean, he's a true freshman. He only averages 2 points a game, so if he's scoring, you know something's wrong.
Yeah, definitely not what you want to see as a Tennessee Volunteers fan. And it felt like every time that Tennessee would hit a three or get a big opportunity, Kentucky would come right back down the floor. They'd be able to get their offense going and hit a big shot that would give them those points back. And if you're the Volunteers, that's not going to be a winning system. But a winning system is what you're going to see here. Igor Milicic is able to find space, and Chaz Lanier, again, makes his threes. He was cold towards the beginning of SEC play. People kind of started to doubt him, but fortunately, he's been able to find his footing. Again, an offensive rebound. Tennessee needs some points. Milicic is able to open up space. Chaz Lanier, another three. We've got a 1 point game. But as we've seen before, Tennessee's unable to take the lead late, which leaves Zakai Ziegler coming down the floor, 5 seconds left, 5 points, and he misses his three. It's going to stay that way. Kentucky gets back on the right path. Tennessee loses 2 in a row, looking to kind of right their wrongs. And as we look at these post-game stats, the one thing that jumps out to me is the shooting percentage in the field goal and three-pointers. It was not pretty on any front. And offense seems to be a struggle right now for the Volunteers.
I mean, it for sure is. And the one critique that I look at when I'm taking this Tennessee offense is that it just looks unstructured. Everybody talks about Rick Barnes' defense because his teams that he's coached, the defense is phenomenal. He knows how to coach defense, but the offense is where you lose me a little bit. Right now, you got guys like Felix Okpara, who is 6'11", and Igor Milicic, who is 6'9". Now, Milicic can shoot, so I'm good with him taking shots. But I need to see them in the post a lot more than I am right now. A lot of our offense is running 5 guys around the perimeter, passing the ball until someone gets an open shot and hucking up a three. Threes are good when you make them, but it's so predictable. Teams are just guarding the three-point line, and that's an easy way to defend, right? And what I want to see more is guys like Jordan Gainey or maybe not Chaz Lanier because he's a hot shooter, but like Zakai Ziegler. He can make stuff happen at the rim. So drive in there. Then you have the option to kick it out. You have the option to just go up for the layup if it's there. But it's more unpredictable, and you got to work the ball through the post if you want to open up the offense. So I mean, what I want to see going forward from this team is just more structure because right now we're on a little cold streak with the shooting and. Relying on something that's cold is not going to win you games. So I'd like to see a little bit more working in the post, letting the big guys do their job, and maybe kicking it out and then getting those shots. But the way it's working right now is just not the way I think we should be playing basketball.
Absolutely. And looking at that three-point shot, that was such an asset for the Vols. We were undefeated, and we went into SEC play. Kentucky, we were 11 of 45 shots at home. Very unfamiliar for this Rick Barnes team, and it makes you wonder, what's the difference? Why do we enter SEC play and what happened there? Why are we only making a little bit of those shots? Who else needs to step up?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a stat: 72 shots put up that entire game. Are we going down there and just throwing it up? I mean, like Luke said, you just go down there and throw the ball up there, and they're not going to go in a lot of the time. 34% like we saw. It's not great at all. In fact, it's horrendous. But look, you got guys out there that are inconsistently scoring. You look at Milicic and Gainey; they're putting up two digits, 20 points, and then the next night they're putting up 4. Okay, so there's like inconsistent scoring out there, and you can look at Chaz Lanier, who is that consistent guy, that variable. He's going to come out there and put up good points. Well, like you said, start of SEC play, he goes cold, and then who's left? And so the team mentally is not there because all of a sudden you look for Chaz Lanier, he's not putting up shots, and nobody else is. So there's got to be somebody there when Chaz is in there to pick it up. Whether it's Zakai Ziegler, whether it is Milicic or Gainey, it's going to be somebody to pick up the slack when we don't have somebody that's consistently putting up baskets.
I agree wholeheartedly. The depth on offense is a concern for me. And I'm just going to say real quick, Chaz Lanier has gotten a little bit of heat because he was supposed to be this next DK. I don't think it's fair at all
Yeah,
to
yeah,
call him
absolutely.
the next DK.
Very large
very
shoes to
different
fill.
people,
Yeah.
very big shoes to fill. And so it's not fair to say that he's not filling his role on the team, because he is. He's still our leading scorer, and his job is to score the basketball. But to say that he's not filling that role is not fair. And the issue that you run into is that same thing last year. You had a leading scorer, but if he has an off night, who's there to pick up the slack? Like you said, we're not seeing that team component right now. You have guys that can score, but when they're off, you got to rely on the other guys, maybe like a Darlington Dubar, or you got to.
He's not been doing a lot.
Exactly,
No.
but you got to have the
Where
other
is
guys to pick up the slack, and that's not what's going on right
Yeah.
now.
I agree. Now,
Oops,
to-
sorry.
we
So-
got to
sorry,
get moving.
sorry,
so, I know
sorry.
we've been gone for a while, but to get a better idea of how Tennessee has performed since the beginning of winter break, let's take a look at some of the major games they've played since we've been gone. And as you can see, there's some green and there's some red, and those red are all coming from SEC play. Obviously, the big game, December 14th, Illinois. They travel to Illinois, and that's a difficult game. Gainey gets a last-second winning shot. Arkansas, they take care of. That's the first SEC game. And then they go to Florida and drop an egg. More about that later. Texas, they get a win. Georgia, they get a win. Start to see some momentum, and then they drop a game in Nashville to Vanderbilt. And then they come back, they beat Mississippi State, and then lose to Auburn in a close defensive battle, one that they would have liked, and it was their style of play, and then they fall to Kentucky. Luke, when you look at this graphic, what game stands out to you?
The first one that stands out to me is that Illinois game. At the time, the Tennessee Vols were the #1 team in the country. That was a nail-biting game. That was a really exciting game
scared,
to watch
yeah.
on the road. I think all Vol fans were happy with the result. But the thing that stuck out for me was that we had a high shooting percentage in that game. We were 32% from the field, which you've seen higher, but
It's high
and
for
then-
the Vols.
But 25% from three. So the three ball was working there. But the other thing that really stood out to me was the turnover battle. We won the turnover battle in that by a sizable margin. We had 7 steals to their 2, and we had 6 turnovers to their 11. So the turnover margin was really in the Vols' favor there, and we were scoring off of turnovers. We scored 12 points off of fast break points off of turnovers, which is something you haven't been seeing in recent games. That start of the season, the Vols were really hot on offense. They were making their threes, they were shooting the ball well, and they were getting turnovers and making stuff happen off of those turnovers. Now, you've kind of seen the opposite. A couple sloppy turnovers for the Vols that lead to points for other teams, and they're not really doing what they were doing earlier in the season with winning that turnover margin.
Yeah, the game that really stood out to me was Auburn, another really tough loss on the road for our Vols. Really low-scoring game, 53-51 from 2 top 10 teams. Now, I expected it to be a battle, but I definitely expected more offensive momentum from both of those teams moving forward. Really sloppy first half from both teams. A lot of turnovers, a lot of missed shots, a lot of fouls, and it was just the race to the next basket. No one really had a footing over the other. Huge weapon back for Auburn, though. Janai Broome came back, led his team in almost every category. If he was gone, that could have been a very different game for Tennessee, but that's no excuse here. We're keeping that one guy on offensive momentum. For Auburn, it was Zakai Ziegler, led the team with 14 points. No one was backing him up. He had no one else to help. Another last-minute loss for the Vols, and this is one of 3 games now the Vols have lost within a 10-point margin. Imagine what would have been different if we had just some other shooter to back us up there. Just a really tough loss on the road for the Vols.
And I think every Vol fan had a big sigh when they saw Janai Broome warming up
Yes.
for that game, because it was questionable whether he was going to play or not. So.
Well, I drew the last straw. Let's talk Vanderbilt. Let's look at Vanderbilt here. Look, it's too little, too late at the end. You go for a run at the end. But Vanderbilt had all the runs at the beginning of the game. First half, they went on 2 or 3 solid runs. We're on a scoring drought, and that means a lot of points for Vanderbilt that are going up there. All of a sudden, we're reeling at the half, and you try to make a charge at the end of the game, it just doesn't happen. Look, Vandy's a physical team. They're a physical team with a lot of big guys and a lot of power down there. The bench for Vandy destroyed the Volunteers. I mean, they went 20-8. Look, the bench outscored the Volunteers 20 for 8. 18 second chance points in the paint. They're physical. They're down there boxing out, and they're going to put the ball right back up. So that's where we're slacking. I mean, you just get out-rebounded, you get out-hustled, and you get out-physicality, I guess is we're going to make up that word. But look, it's a different ballgame when you get out there with a team that's really physical and really powerful.
And going off those rebounds, the other thing that I mentioned earlier is our 2 big men. They're standing out by the 3-point line. So offensively, when you huck up that 3, not only do you have everyone just playing hot potato around the 3-point line, but you don't have guys down low to get those offensive rebounds because they're setting high picks or whatever. And that's okay every now and then. But consistently not having your big guys down in the post to get those offensive rebounds or potential offensive rebounds is a huge loss.
I think we can all agree SEC play is exploiting Tennessee's weaknesses
think?
right now.
For sure.
I'd say the
For
offense kind of looks like what I look like when I play, rec basketball in the park. It's just, well, he can't hit today. Who's next? I mean, someone's got to make a shot. You'd think, clearly not. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Jeremy and the Rocky Talk crew are going to talk a little bit about professional sports. Stick with us.
At long last, we are back with more Rocky Talk just for you. I'm Jeremy Knopf II. To my left is Lucas Reisenweber, and to my right is Zach Pelfrey. Let's have a great show, gents, shall we?
Oh, I'm ready.
Let's go ahead and do it. In the world of professional basketball, a particular star player will be missing in action for the unforeseeable future. This past Monday, Miami Heat forward and multi-time NBA All-Star Jimmy Butler was suspended indefinitely as he prematurely walked away from practice before taking on the Orlando Magic. Head coach Eric Spoelstra had some interesting remarks to make after this organizational decision.
I figure that's why this meeting room is full right now. We're trying to quiet, the noise, and we're just focusing on the task at hand.
So with that in mind, the coach is well aware of the situation, but he's not letting that distract the players' mindsets or any team chemistry that they have. However, after seeing how they've played recently, will the Heat still be able to compete at a high level with Butler's absence, or do they need their big-time player back as soon as possible? Zach?
Well, I feel like this needs to be said first and foremost. If I'm the Heat GM, I think this needs to be said. Butler has to go. He's caused too much in the offseason, in which is antics on social media, posting his card getting declined on his Instagram story. Wow. I mean, this has been turned into more of a cancer than it has good. I mean, superstar players like Jimmy Butler will go. They want more money. He wants to be traded. That's the end of the story. He wants to be traded. Now, if I'm the Heat, you don't want to lose your superstar player, but if he keeps doing this, you have to let him go. Yeah. You have to let him go. The Heat are too good of an organization to keep Jimmy Butler on the court. Keep letting this happen behind the scenes. They need to go out and they need to get themselves a new superstar. He's 35. He's got skill left in him, and he's got some trade value with that. Now, with that being said, Golden State, they've been looking at Butler. They've been trying to make offseason moves, but the Heat won't allow it. I say this has been going on for too long. I think they need to cut their losses, make the trade, but don't walk away with nothing. Get something in return.
I think it's what's great to see here is that I can't say I'm surprised. I mean, we've seen the last 3 organizations Butler has played for. I'm a big Bulls fan. We saw what happened at the end of his journey with the Bulls. Then he went to the T-Wolves. I mean, same thing year after year. You maybe get 4 solid years out of him, and then he's unhappy, and he at least lets you know about it. I mean, he's very blatantly unhappy. But I think, you never know what Jimmy Butler you're going to get going into each season. But I think one thing you have to just look at is, in the words of my favorite announcer, Stacey King, Jimmy gets buckets. Jimmy gets buckets at all times. I don't care how old he is. Like you said, they need to get some value out of him. You can't just let him walk. That's not going to be good for your organization. But at the same time, you can't keep him because, like you said, you can't make him happy anymore. He's made his decision. He said it to the public. He's basically said it in any way that he can. There's no way to make him happy. And I think, at that point, you just have to let him go. A lot of people looking at him.
I mean, with that being said, Jimmy Butler, he's still averaging 17 points on the season.
Right.
I mean, he's going to get his buckets, but if you look at the last couple games he's played since his second suspension, he's only averaging 11 points. His will to play for the Miami Heat is gone. He wants to be out of there, and he's not gonna put his full effort on the court if he's not getting what he wants. He wants a contract extension. He would like to be there, but they're not willing to offer him another contract extension like they did with Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero.
Right, and I think that is a way that you have to look at it and say that this is not a sole Jimmy Butler problem. I mean, when you're a star at the caliber that Jimmy plays, and you see that your team just gave 2 of your foundational players a large contract extension, and they're not really batting an eye at you, I think that says something as I don't seem as important to these guys as people, like you said, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo. So I feel like that is kind of a slap in the face for him, and at the same time, I do feel like, I don't know,
And for that Orlando game, they put in Hayward Highsmith, who, might I mind you, he has 6.4 average points on the season. He is not the replacement that the Heat need.
If they don't have a replacement.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. If you're going to trade him, you have to get something in return.
Yeah.
You have to. That's the bottom line for the Heat.
And if you're Jimmy Butler, I mean, do you see before his last suspension what they did to him? You tell your star player that, you're going to be coming off the bench now. I'd get out of that arena too. I don't know what people are saying. They're surprised. I would be upset. I'm not against him in this situation whatsoever.
Well, it is important to look at this situation, especially from how they are in the playoff standings. Right now, they are at 23 and 23. At this point in the season, no.
Right.
You want to be where you're at least at the 6th seed, where you're guaranteed a first-round spot. Right now, they're hovering around the play-in tournament. So we'll be keeping an eye on this situation with Jimmy Butler, and we'll see if he can keep the ball rolling as the season goes on. But now, we'll step aside from the basketball court and prepare ourselves for a Gridiron Championship showdown for the ages. The Super Bowl 59 teams have been decided, and claiming the NFC crown are the Philadelphia Eagles, putting on an offensive show against the Washington Commanders 55-23. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, they had some big highlights. But the star of the day was the former New York Giant, Saquon Barkley, rushing for over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns, and breaking tackles left and right. This man was on a tear this past Sunday, and he is one you won't want to mess with all the marbles down in New Orleans. Speaking of Saquon, Lucas, will go to you this time. Would the Eagles even be in this position without acquiring the Pennsylvania native, or is this the missing piece of the puzzle this franchise needed to get one step closer to another Lombardi trophy?
I think this is very plain and simple to say, Jeremy. You cannot find another player like Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, every 32 teams, that he's the missing piece. He is everyone's missing piece. I don't think there is any team in the NFL that would not be better if they acquired Saquon Barkley. So I would say, yes, he was the piece that they needed to get to this kind of, position in the playoffs. I mean, they've made it to the Super Bowl once with this team before, or, well, most of the team, but they weren't able to succeed. Now look up, they put the most points up in a conference championship game in history. I mean, that's ridiculous. And it's because of him. He had 3 touchdowns. That's insanity. So I would feel like, yeah, he is every single team's missing piece, especially the Eagles. And when you look at the Eagles, you look at how they play, you see what the Ravens did when they added Derrick Henry. You don't know what they're going to do on offense. You have, well, we'll go back to the Eagles here. You have a scrambling quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You have an incredible wide receiver core with one of the best wide receiver ones in A.J. Brown, and then one of the best wide receiver twos in Devontae Smith. You don't know if they're going to be throwing it, if Hurts is going to run it, or if they're going to hand it off to Saquon and get a, 60-something yard touchdown on the very first play like they did in this last game. He is everyone's missing piece, and I really don't know how the Eagles, or how you can say the Eagles would be the same team if he wasn't there with them.
Well, I think the credit is for Saquon to the average enjoyer, but you got to look at who they've drafted and who they've picked up in free agency over the past couple of years. I mean, they've been called the Philadelphia Bulldogs for a reason. Some of these top 5 stars that have come out of Georgia, like Jalen Carter, one of their leading tacklers. He came out of Georgia. He's been tearing it up on the defensive side. But one of the themes that I looked at was the Eagles have been to the playoffs the last 4 years in a row.
Correct.
Lost to Tampa Bay, went to the Super Bowl, lost to Kansas City. 2023, lost to Tampa Bay again. This year they're in the Super Bowl against Kansas City. What's been missing in all of those games? The Eagles have a great defense. They didn't have the best offense. They had a good offense, not a great offense. With pickups like A.J. Brown, but Saquon Barkley, that will be the difference. Saquon Barkley is a 2,000-yard rusher. I mean, how could he not be the difference maker for the Eagles to go forward? I mean, it's preposterous how he's still doing this. But I mean, I love it.
I think the interesting thing to look at in this situation is that the Eagles have always had a pretty prestigious O-line, and they've always had decently mediocre running backs. I mean, the last couple of years they were working with DeAndre Swift. Blanked on my name, even though he's a Bear. DeAndre Swift, and I mean, he was putting up decent numbers. I remember when we acquired DeAndre Swift, I was like, this guy is going to be a beast. What I didn't realize was he was just working behind the best O-line in the league. He's not going to be good against the worst O-line in the league. But when you have that prestigious of an O-line, you add someone like Saquon Barkley, that's a Super Bowl. I'm sorry, it's just going to happen.
Well, the former Giant Saquon Barkley, a big reason why the Eagles are back in the Super Bowl, winning the NFC Championship once again. Now representing the AFC for the 5th time in 6 years will be the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes and company barely edged out the Buffalo Bills 32-29. What many football fans and enthusiasts would call a game of controversy. Questionable penalties called, debatable ball placement by the referees. However, in the midst of all that, I would claim the biggest controversy came at the moment near the end of the second half when the Chiefs needed to make a statement before halftime. And it comes with about 3 minutes left to go. Mahomes needing to throw a Hail Mary, and it's caught for the first and goal by Xavier Worthy. Wait, no, maybe it's an interception by the safety, Cole Bishop. When you take a look at this replay, it is almost a 50-50 ball. Look at that. That is as close you're going to get. I'm glad that in moments like that, I am not an official. But ultimately, the referees did call this a completed catch, setting up a first and goal and eventual rushing touchdown for Mahomes. But I want your input on this because we're going back to the same question. What is a catch? From your own eyes, Zach, will go back to you. Was this complete, incomplete interception? Tell me, and did the refs make the right call?
Well, I mean, first off, this had to have been a catch. It was called on the field, and there wasn't enough video evidence to overturn it. Now, with that being said, the rule, the NFL rule that states what is a catch is that if the ball touches the ground, the movement does not automatically result in a loss of possession. If a player secures the ball in his hands when going to the ground, even if it touches the ground, it is still ruled a catch as long as he does not lose possession on the ground. Right. So as long as he secures the catch going to the ground, even if it touches the ground, it's still completed catch.
Right, but you look at that. I understand. You know what? Looking back at it, looking at the replays, obviously I was pretty furious during the game. I would say, you know, obviously according to the rule book, they're going to give the offense the 50-50. Okay, that's fine. I don't technically disagree with the call, but it's very hard to say that that was obviously a catch because at the peak velocity of that catch, when they're up in the air, Cole Bishop has a majority of the possession. I fully believe that. He has a majority of the possession of the ball. By the time they get down, I do see that Xavier Worthy can secure it to his person. But that angle, I mean, you can barely see, you know, whose hand it is. First of all,
that's when you have to go back to the call on the field. The call on the field stood as Chiefs' ball.
Right.
Chiefs made the catch.
But I mean, you can say that about any other call in there, and there are so many calls that they're overturning left and right. I mean, there just needs to be consistency. We're not really seeing that much consistency, and I think with these plays, it's just opening the gate to controversy. So.
Yeah.
Well, it was a very emotional Sunday, to say at the least. It's going to be an exciting matchup down in New Orleans, and we'll definitely have more coverage for the big game as February 9th comes close. But that will wrap things up for Lucas, Zach, and I here at the desk. Thank you for tuning in for another great edition of Rocky Top. More Torch Sports is coming up next, so stay tuned.
Hey everyone, welcome to the first summit segment of 2025. We are so happy you're here. I'm your host, Jordan Smitherman, alongside Alexi Cowan, Riley Haltom, and Patrick Falcon. We are going to dive into our Lady Vols in the thick of their monster SEC schedule and talk a little bit about the new Women's 3x3 Basketball League, Unrivaled. So first off, we have to talk about the biggest news of the week. Kim Caldwell returning a week after giving birth to her son, Connor Caldwell. I mean, what an effort. Like, she has made national news, and this is just a great effort by her and really shows how committed she is to this team. But the game, it did not go too well for our Lady Vols. I mean, we were close. We were with South Carolina, but we just had a poor shooting performance, and we just weren't making any threes, weren't the usual Lady Vols we know. So, do you guys think that the Lady Vols would have more of a chance in the game if they just shot a little better, or no?
Well, here's the thing. I think this average shooting that we're seeing, this is becoming our average. We are not excelling like we should. You know, I know that people had been, you know, talking about like, if we just shot a couple more, if we just shot a little above average, this is our average now. This is what we're working with. And so if we want to be better, we have to exceed these little petty shots we're taking. But
yeah. What you got?
I think absolutely. If you want to look at the stats here on statistical averages, we shot 11.5% from three. Versus South Carolina, we shot 30.7% from the field. We usually shoot a better three-point percentage than we shot from than all of our field goals. And we're not taking less shots. We took 26 threes. But if you want to win that game, you have to shoot better than 3 for 26. You have to prove you can shoot against the big guys. You can't just stat pad against Stanford and MTSU. And that's what's making us look below average in these games, because we're not used to the level of competition yet.
What about you, Riley?
I think this is something that you're seeing with the Lady Vols this entire season. They're hanging with everybody. This is not a one-off, oh, they had a chance to beat the champs. South Carolina wasn't playing their best ball. South Carolina was playing Dawn Staley ball. They were playing well. Yeah. This is not a difference from the reigning champs.
Yeah.
Lady Vols are just good.
Yes.
You look before this game, they were 8 points away from being undefeated on the season. All 4 of their losses combined by 8 points. Now this one added 7 onto that total because that's just the way South Carolina is. But being within single digits of arguably the best team in the country.
With a poor shooting night.
With a poor shooting night,
The
you
6
can't be
minute drought.
disappointed. Yeah.
6 minute scoring drought. We scored 10 points in that time. In 6 minutes, we're in that game. We're winning that game.
Yeah, you can't be disappointed with a performance like that against arguably the best team in the country. This is a team that no matter who they are playing, where they are playing, they are going to give you a fight for the entire game time. This is not a team that you can overlook. This is not a team that you've seen from the Lady Vols in the past few years. This is a team that's going to challenge you every single game. This is a team that is dangerous and will be exponentially more dangerous come March.
Yes, I agree. And we only made 3 threes, and the fact that we only lost, like you were saying, by single digits with a poor shooting night just shows the lengths that this Lady Vol team has gone to improve. So
I feel like we're going to have to start, if we're at a game and we're not making threes, we're going to have to figure out something else. It's like if these threes aren't working, what do we do? Go to the basket.
Yeah, I say drive to the paint.
And that's going to take some, technique work of how to get there. I think we're struggling to work out the kinks of how to actually get to the basket in a way.
Yes. So with such a great start for the Lady Vols, undefeated through non-conference play, and Coach Caldwell's doing great, they are now getting a warm welcome to the SEC. Even though they're in every game, they have lost a couple straight, and with 3 straight SEC losses. And even though they're only by a combined 12 points, they have dropped to 14-5, which is okay. They're still ahead of what they were projected to be. So we kind of already talked about it a little, but in what ways can Coach Caldwell and this team bounce back from 3 straight SEC losses to get back in the win column? You want to start us off?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 5 quad 1 losses is nothing to turn your nose at. This is a team that is going to lose some games because they're playing in the toughest division in all of college basketball, and that is the SEC.
Yeah.
They're going to drop some games. That's just the nature of it. South Carolina is the only team that right now is not losing games in the SEC. That is the only team right now that is having the kind of dominance in the SEC that trumps everybody else around them, and they also have a loss to UCLA,
the number 1 team,
the number 1 team in the country right now. Yes, so this is not a team that is scrambling for answers. This is not a team that's panicking right now. This is a team that is playing good basketball. Sometimes the ball is just not going to go through the hoop. That is just as simple as it gets. Sometimes it doesn't happen. And with a team like this, I actually disagree with Alexia a little bit. I don't think you have to go to the basket. I think this is a team that their strength is their shooting. Their strength is their volume shooting. So continue to shoot.
Yes.
But what are you going to do if you're 3 for 47 at the 3-point line?
Well, and that was the case against South Carolina there at the end. Lady Vols made that game look much closer than it actually was there in that fourth quarter. They went into that fourth quarter down double digits. It looked like it was going to be a blowout. Everybody in the arena felt like it was going to be a blowout. But then they started hitting those shots. They started falling. So I think this team, if they just shoot volume shots, they are going to ultimately put themselves in positions to win games because they're not going to miss as often as they missed against South Carolina every game.
You go ahead, Patrick. What you got?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but the shots need to fall. I agree with Riley here. They're shooting the correct volume. They're shooting right. They shot 26 threes last game. They're getting up a lot of shots. It's not like they're losing a bunch of possessions, have a bunch of turnovers, stuff like that. I don't know if the looks are bad. I don't know what it is. But you need to get that rhythm back offensively, and I want to see you rebound a little bit. They lost that Texas game solely because they got it rebounded. It was so untough. Everyone was grabbing boards over them. They looked like my friend Luke Lamry at the T-Rex, just getting out rebounded all day long. Can't do a thing in the paint. I mean, we need a backup option if we're not going to be able to make our threes. I agree with Alexi there. So something to get your rhythm back offensively. I don't know if Kim Caldwell needs to show a little bit of her toughness that she had when she came back after giving birth, but something needs to happen.
Yeah, and here's
agree.
the thing. The Lady Vols had less turnovers and more rebounds than South Carolina, the number 2 team, but they still only lost by 7 because of the poor shooting. So I think they're doing everything else well. They just maybe had an unlucky shooting night.
When one thing goes right, the other thing goes wrong. We shot well versus Texas, but then we can't rebound. You have to have that finesse and that toughness.
Yeah.
Now, in my Little League basketball days, I always thought that it was a mental game.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going into it mentally, I would think, my coach just went through 9 months of being pregnant, gave birth, and missed 1 game.
Yeah.
I can put in a little extra effort for her. I can jump a little higher for that rebound. I mean, she's standing there, just popped out a child. I mean, can you work a little harder for that woman? I mean, I think we look just a tad bit lazy for the coach that we have just brought in. We need to be a little more thankful for her.
Yeah, but also the number 2 team, losing by single digits, like Riley said. So you can't
It
ask
just
for
takes a
much more.
little bit of extra effort, a couple extra rebounds, a couple extra points.
And that's your identity as a coach, Kim Caldwell, a lot of hustle.
Yeah.
I mean, she showed that off the court, obviously, coming back, but her players aren't doing it. They're doing this system where they only play a minute and a half, they only play a couple minutes, trying to get them subbed in quickly. So why can't you get that little bit of extra effort? There's no excuse for it.
We got to get out of those Kelly Harper days. We got to move in.
I think we're out of the Kelly Harper days.
We are. We're making great
Everything
strides.
that Kim Caldwell has done and all the improvements we made show that we're out of the Kelly Harper days. I just think this could have just been like an unlucky night for shooting against a team. Do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, at the end of the day, this is a team that they are predicated on their ability to shoot and their ability to make your life very difficult on the defensive end for the entire game.
Yes.
That is what this team is about, and they're doing that, I think, extremely well right now. They're playing some really, really good basketball teams. Like I said, all 5 of their losses are quad one. That they are still, going to win games. They're still blowing out some SEC opponents.
Yeah.
They beat Arkansas by 30.
Yeah.
This is not a team that is like I said, they're not panicking. This is not you're not sounding the alarms right now for the Lady Vols.
Not at all.
Yeah, new coach, like first SEC season, couple hiccups in close games. I'm not worried about it. We definitely made strides, just that little bit more.
Yeah.
We want to get to the top, which I think we so can do, even with this roster. It just takes that a little bit more. Yeah.
Never in a million years did I think we'd be where we were with the first year coach.
Oh, honestly, yeah, for sure. Okay, so we had a great talk about that. We know hopefully the Lady Vols can bounce back and finally get a win to go their way in this tough stretch. But now, the Unrivaled Basketball League has finally made its debut. In case you didn't know, it's a new women's basketball 3x3 league with 6 teams, founded by current WNBA players Brianna Stewart and Nafisha Collier. It includes many of today's WNBA stars and Olympians such as Sabrina Ionescu, Brittany Griner, Angel Reese, and our very own Rakea Jackson. Its main purpose is to provide players with an alternative to playing overseas in the offseason as they usually do. Also, the players are getting paid at a higher salary to play in this short 8-week league than the WNBA. It's been full of exciting games, finishes, and star power. I could go on about this for a while, but I thought I would turn it over to you guys. So my question is, we're going to keep it simple. Do you think this new league is good for women's basketball as it's experiencing exponential growth? And what do you think is the potential impact this could have on the women's basketball field? Alexi?
I didn't know much about it in the beginning. I'll be honest, I was kind of like, why are we doing this? What's the point? I thought it was a little kind of out there, kind of odd that it was just coming out of the blue. But the more I've thought about it, I think it is a great idea.
Yes.
And now, on the topic of will it bring more attention to women's sports, I don't know. That's something that we're going to have to see when it debuts because it is off season and everybody's watching the NBA games.
Yes.
I'm just going to be honest. Everybody's watching college and NBA right now. So I don't know. And I don't know how much it will be broadcasted. I don't know if it's more of a linear or a digital broadcast. I don't know where that's going. But I am excited for them. I worry about the ratings.
Yes, and I know it's been airing 3 times a week on True TV and TNT, so it has already its broadcast partners, everything like that. So it's up and going. And I think it set a record number for viewership in
really
somewhere in the 300,000. So it's getting good traction. So we'll see if it continues. Patrick.
Yeah, I would say it's exposure, and it's not negative exposure. Therefore, it's positive exposure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of my philosophy on it. You're showing the world more women's basketball, and you're showing them kind of more fun pickup style 3-on-3. I mean, we don't want to see slug out defensive games, but when you got 3-on-3, you can space the floor a little better, get some more exciting shots, get some more exciting highlights. And we have these stars of the WNBA playing in it. We have Sabrina, we have Brittany Griner, we have Rakea. We have so many of those stars playing that we don't have to, I don't want to say sit through the role players, but why do you tune into a WNBA game or an NBA game? You want to watch the All-Stars. You want to watch the best players. Every player on the court's an All-Star now. So I think it's great for women's basketball.
Yeah. What about you, Riley?
I actually disagree.
Really?
I don't love what Unrivaled is doing, and
Why?
solely because it's pulling eyes away from the college game. And the college game is what has been so integral to growing this sport. That is
Good point.
what started the spark.
Yeah.
That was having these superstars in college go on to the WNBA, and it's brought eyes to the WNBA. That is the first step that we saw in this huge growth of women's basketball. I think it's a great option for the players. I think it's fantastic for them to go, instead of having to travel overseas to get this kind of salary to be able to play women's basketball in the United States. It's a great option for the players. In terms of talking about growing the sport, though, I don't know if it's as positive, because you're taking eyes away from that college game. You're splitting people's attention. I want to see the college game continue to grow, so you can continue to see these new stars that we're seeing in the college game right now. You've got, a Juju Watkins, players like that are exciting to watch. People want to tune in there. I don't
And you have
wanna
Paige
take that
Beckers.
away. Yeah, Paige Beckers, obviously. I don't want to take that away.
Yeah.
And put these eyes towards some of the more established stars.
Yeah.
I like it because I get to watch more women's basketball. But at the end of the day, I don't know if it's going to be a positive thing long term because of the impact it's going to have on college viewership.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was all great, but that is all the time we have for you today on the Summit. Tune back in next week, and we can't wait to see you. Go Vols.
Welcome back to the Orange Zone. On the right is Sophie Starkey. On the left, Luca Tal and Luke Lamery. I'm Jackson Schock. Now, despite the disappointing losses to Auburn and Kentucky to end that first month of SEC play, Saturday brings the Volunteers a fresh start. Tennessee will host the Florida Gators this weekend in Food City Center. The two just played each other about a month ago in Gainesville, and it was an atrocious performance by the Volunteers. Here's a look at the stats following that game. Now, Tennessee did not shoot the ball well, and that is the grossest understatement I can make. They played awful when it came to shooting the ball. Rebounds didn't get there either. So not only were they missing, but they weren't getting their misses. Another hurtful decision by the Volunteers, and they had the same amount of turnovers as Florida. This is one of the ugliest college football games that I have ever seen, I think, in my life, and I've seen a good bit. Luke, when you saw that game, what did you leave thinking?
I mean, it was a historically bad shooting night for the Vols. We had 5 guys score points. How many guys are on our team? More than 5 last time I checked. Right? We had 5 guys score. Our leading scorer was Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler with 10 points each. Not normally what you see from the Vols, but we scored 4 buckets in the first 20 minutes of play. Isn't that crazy?
That's high school.
That's pretty bad.
That's
pretty bad.
That's church league basketball. Let's take a step
100%.
back.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, he looks like my boy Patrick Falcon. But I mean, what I'm saying here is like the shooting was ridiculously awful, and I think it woke up a lot of Vol fans because you're the number 1 team in the country. You're coming in hot off of high scoring games, and you're shooting the rock pretty well, and then you come to this game, and this team goes cold. I mean, that's
It goes frozen.
Yeah, frozen. They're playing hockey out there. They're not playing basketball. But I think this woke up a lot of Vols fans because it showed that, this team has some weaknesses. It's not all sunshine and butterflies over here in Rocky Top. And I mean,
You tell them.
100%.
I'd argue it is a little bit. I love it here.
Yeah, it is pretty nice. But bottom line is this team has its weaknesses, and I think that was, obviously shown in this game. And I'm worried low-key in this upcoming matchup against Florida because if our shooting is like we were last time, we're going to get steamrolled. I think.
That. Low key. He's not high
It didn't
key.
feel right coming off the tongue. Didn't feel right.
I
It's
saw
low
the
key.
smirk on Luke Lamery's face when he said low
It's
key.
low key.
Maybe a little too low key there. Now let's take a look at the team stats when it comes to the Florida Gators and the Tennessee Volunteers. Lead scorers, coincidentally, both teams have a lead scorer that scores 17.8 points. I don't know. I thought that was a little niche, but Walter Clayton Jr. is their lead scorer. Chaz Lanier for the Volunteers.
Walter Clayton.
Walter Clayton.
That's a
Could be
granddad.
founding
That's a
father.
granddad name. That's a pass
like
down.
the
He's going to be
word,
one
like-
heck
Well, he
of
is a
an
junior,
old
so
man.
I guarantee it's his dad.
The second.
The second.
Now,
The second.
when we go to points per game, a green number signifies that they're top 5 in the SEC. A red number signifies they're the bottom 5. That is not a good disparity. Now, it's not. It's 10 points, which you wouldn't think is that much of a disparity, but clearly it is when it comes to the top and the bottom of the SEC. Field goal percentage, no surprise that Tennessee is low on that list at 44.6%. Florida at 47%. Again, not really that different, but that's one of the worst in the SEC. Points allowed, this is where the Vols succeed. 59.3 points and 65.4 for Florida. That's a big jump. That's 6 points. That helps the Vols' case in showing, well, we can't play any offense, but we can play defense. Points differential, again, in the Volunteers' favor, but not as much as Florida. Top 5, but only by so much. Florida's really up there. That doesn't boast well for the Volunteers.
Yeah, let's take a look at some matchups here. Okay, well, first of all, we can look at Chaz Lanier and Walter Clayton Jr. Okay, they're both averaging, like Jackson said, 17.8 points per game. Last year, Walter Clayton Jr. was second all-SEC team. So this guy's no joke, okay? But neither is Chaz. So this is going to be a great matchup to watch. Be sure to be keeping an eye on these two. I guarantee you they'll be put on each other because they're both the same size and stature. Stats are relatively the same, so keep an eye out. What we're also going to look at here, and we don't have the graphic up, but we're going to look at Zakai, and I think we put him on Will Richard. If I'm Rick Barnes, I think we put it on Will Richard out there. Okay, these guys are, Zakai's smaller than Will Richard, but Will Richard, he's averaging 13 points per game. That's kind of around Zakai's kind of, ball game. That's what he's putting up per game. 5 rebounds. Look, Todd Golden said, Will Richard, he's really playing defense well. So if a guy can go out there, he's got to counter that. He's got to get out there, really just get physical with him, really give him the business out there. What else we can do? We can also look at the 2 big men down there. Let's look at Condon, Zach Condon. So what we're going to do is we're going to put Okpara on him. We're going to put Okpara, because those are 2 big guys. And this guy, Condon's getting 1.5 blocks per game. So he's the physical guy down there. Okpara, you got to give him the dream shake. You got to give him the, the bounce all around, put him up the points. Okay, so what we got to do, we got to get our 2 big men down there. You talked earlier about physicality. We talked physicality a lot earlier. Get down there, get physical, out-rebound them, and let them know.
Stay in the paint.
Absolutely.
Some would say. Stay in the paint.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Now let's take a look at the common opponents that these two have. Sophie, why don't you tell us kind of what the rundown here?
Absolutely. So rematch against Florida, looking at some of the SEC teams both of these teams have faced. Kentucky was a loss for both of these teams, except it was a better loss, if you will, for Florida. Really high-scoring game, both break 100. Florida was in this game till the wire, and it was a road game for them. As we have mentioned a lot of today, not a great performance by the Vols. Home game, it's been a very long time since the Vols have lost at home. Even though we only trailed by a couple points, it still felt like we were never ahead in that game. We were just trying to catch up constantly, but that was a loss for both these teams. Arkansas, pretty good win for both these teams. Bigger win for Tennessee, but it was also a road win for Florida. Home win for Tennessee, if you will. Not any big difference here. Georgia, a win for both these teams as well, except Florida put the gas on Georgia. They beat them by 30 points as opposed to our 18, and I know you're thinking that doesn't matter a lot. But since Tennessee's only lost by a 10-point margin in all 3 of their losses, that could add up. Texas is probably the biggest win for both of these teams. Tennessee was down to the wire with Texas. Away game only won by 4. Florida won by 20, and it was at home. And I know you're thinking, in the grand scheme of life, this is the exact same chart. They all have the losses to Kentucky, and all the rest of them are wins. But Florida had a higher point margin in every single category than Tennessee did. And since we've lost all our games in that 10-point, I really think it's going to add up and hurt the Vols.
Yeah, it looks like, we did what we did, and then Florida was like, we're going to do better.
Yeah.
But still have the same
Times 30.
It's like,
That was last summer. I like that.
Yeah, better, but way worse.
I see you all one
Better
up.
but worse.
Yeah, anything you can do, I can do better. That's what they're thinking. When we go to our game picks, what I'm thinking right now is Tennessee needs this win. They can't lose 3 straight after being the #1 team in the nation. That's outlandish. No, you should not do that when you're the #1 team. What I'm thinking is going to happen is the Florida Gators are going to come in and they're going to reach an environment that is very difficult to play in. We've learned that throughout any sport that you play Tennessee in. And the biggest thing is Tennessee needs to win this game. They need to win this game. That's why I see them winning. I've got them 75-72, an accurate score prediction as opposed to some on my social media interviews. Sophie, who do you like?
Unfortunately, hate to do this to my Vols, but I'm going to take Florida in this one because I don't think Tennessee's had enough time to adjust and fix the problems that they're really facing right now. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game, but I'm going to go Florida 81-76.
Do we boo her now or later?
I'm sorry, who did you pick, Atal?
Yeah, what are you talking about? Are you kidding me?
Before you boo me.
Go ahead.
Tell us who your pick is, pal.
You're up next.
Am I up next?
You are up.
Okay, so I'm going to pick Tennessee. Let's switch the vibe a little bit. Let's get excited because, Tennessee, look, we're going to take this 74-66. I don't believe it was Jackson. They're coming into this. This is a hostile environment. This is a physical game. You're going to get down there. We've got a lot of big guys out there. Okay, we've got Okpara. We've got Kate Phillips on the bench. We've got Milicic. We got some power down there. It's going to be a game of physicality. So if we can get out there and show them, we got a little bit of vengeance coming in as well. If we can get out there and show them our physicality, 74-66, the Vols are going to take it.
And
now, Luke, you
real quick.
Tell me who did you pick?
Well, hold on. I think Sophie is ridiculously crazy because Florida's not going to win this game 81-76. They're going to win it 84-76.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding?
And the shooting slump that the Vols are in right now just gives me not enough confidence to give them the win in this matchup. If that changes, it's a big if, but if that changes in this matchup and they get the offense going and they get the shots rolling, they're going to stay in this game and they might take it. But from what I've seen in the past couple matchups, the matchup in Gainesville, I'm taking Florida here. I hope I'm wrong, but I see Florida winning this one.
Can we boo both of them right now?
Boo! Not great. I'd also, there were a lot of ifs there. If you had wheels, you'd be a bike. So there were a lot of options. Now, that's going to wrap up this first episode of the semester. We're thrilled to be back in the studio and in front of all of you. For more Torch Sports content, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at TorchSportsUTK and on Twitter at TorchSports_UTK. Big difference there. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you right back here next week. Peace!